Hello, beer tubers, and welcome to another beer review with me, Peter, the master of Hoppets. Today, checking out some West Coast IPA. Really love spreading the gospel of the West Coast, so we're checking out a collab between Verdant and Elusive Brewing. That is a West Coast IPA. They teamed up with Elusive Brewing. I've had a handful of their beers in the spring when I was in the UK. I haven't seen any in Denmark, but they do a lot of West Coast IPAs. They did one on cask, Oregon Trail. It was all right on cask. I also tried it in the can, and I definitely preferred the can. I don't know if the cask had been open for a while or whatever, but it was just like really leafy, earthy, resiny, and bitter. I like my West Coasters to have some bright fruit character. I like the modern kind, and this looks like something in the vein of that. So this is 6.8%. It's called Trust the Diagram, and it is featuring Columbus, Chinook, Simcoe, and Talus. Chinook is only hot side, cold side, it's the same hops. So Columbus is probably for bittering, maybe also aroma, I guess, because it's cold side. So that's going to give it a lot of that classic grapefruit flavor. Talus is a fun hop to use in there because it's somewhat similar to its, I guess, it's a crossbreed spread off of Sabro. And it's a very like minty herbal. I get like lemongrass and like tropical fruit from it. It's really fun. And then classic Caddy Dank Simcoe. So yeah, I'm hoping this will be like a bright, modernized West Coast IPA with some of the old school flair, and not like just like classic, like really resiny, earthy, pithy, bitter. Like those are also nice, but I love the bright characters of the modern West Coast, like dry, pithy, bitter, hop-centric beer. Love it. So let's check it out. Pours a lightly hazy golden yellow color with a lot of the modern West Coast beers. I mean, some are slightly hazy, but they are also heavily dry hopped. So it's hard to get them like crystal clear. The first few drops I poured out of this beer was quite clear, but it looks like the West Coast IPAs I brew at work. Very pale. It looks a bit darker on camera, but it's a pale golden yellow. There's a whitehead. Let's check out the aroma on Trust the Diagram. Ooh, beer on my mustache. It smells towards the modern approach, that's for sure. So Tal is definitely there. It's got like a nice bright herbaceousness to it. Also some Simcoe. I'm just like, also there I got a good enough amount of dankness, but it's not like, like it's not as in your face. Like if you drink Slice or you drink North Park and a lot of these guys, like they're just in your face. Big difference with the West Coasters and the hazies is that like a lot of times with hazies, something like a cryo hops will somewhat stay in suspension in the beer, so you have like a huge saturated flavors because part of the hops are still in suspension. But in the West Coasters where everything drops out, you don't have the same like crazy bright intense feel for long. So sometimes with West Coasters, if you swirl them, they get like a bit more popping, which is weird. I've experienced that a few times, but I've also figured out, at least from personal experience so far, it also depends on the level of hops you use in the dry hopping charge and also hot side. Like depends on how you layer and how much you use. Like if you really go nuts, like I'm sure like a lot of the Americans are doing. I mean, I think Hopfu, they did the triple dry hop version now. I didn't try it, but I mean those just regular hop foods, like it's a smack in the face. But this is also 6 weeks. Still pretty fresh. But it smells nice. It smells citric bright. There's a little bit of tropical fruit to it, but it's like very zesty, very limey, very herbaceous, like lemongrass, and like a delicate malt backbone, which is what I like. And what a lot of people like nowadays in West Coasters. Not huge, cloying, sweet crystal malt backbones. But let's try this one. Cheers. I got a whole lot more happy with that sip. Wow, this really drinks like a beer. That's funny. It really drinks like the beers we're making right now. Look at the smile on my face. This is the modernized West Coast. It's really bitter, bright beer, but with a good amount of hop flavor. The bitterness is not like the old school West Coast. Some of them, like at one point, it was all about making the most bitter beer you could, and going like 80, 90 IBUs. This feels like 65 plus, maybe 60. It's around that 60, 70 territory, I'd say, because it's quite substantially bitter. It digs into your palate, but it fades. And it's not so dry that the bitterness is too much. That's also the really hard thing with the West Coast IPA, nailing the dryness and the bitterness. So like the bitterness is on point and it's not too dry, because the dryness and bitterness, it can be like just too much. So when you have both in harmony, it really works. But really nice, bright, catty Simcoe flavor too. Like catty dank Simcoe. Really, really nice pithiness. There's definitely lots of lemon pith, lime pith, and then also a huge grapefruit pith, the yellow grapefruit. I think Chinook and Columbus plays in with that, and there's definitely a little bit of an almost chivy, oniony type vibe, but it's not like much. Like I think cold side, especially Columbus, gives off much more grapefruit, and I'm sitting with a lot of lingering like yellow grapefruit flavor right now. This is really good. It's modern yet old school. Like if you compare it to some of the slice beers and North Park beers, when they do a lot of these really crazy modern West Coast beers, they're crazy popping, bright, tropical, whatever, like all these things. They don't have much of these earthy and sticky, resiny flavors and grapefruity flavors, often just touches. Not to say that this has like lots of sticky, earthy, resiny flavors. It has touches as well, but I think it just has a bit more of like a heavy grapefruit and like a heavy, slightly resinous bitterness than some of the really awesome bright modern ones. But it seems like this is to try and do something a bit more modern, but also a bit more, something that is in both camps, both modern and old school. It's just pretty damn good. I would have loved to drink this when this was a couple weeks old, or just tapped. Elusive Brewing. I want to drink more Elusive. Who is anyone distributing this in Europe? Because I know they do a lot of West Coasters. It just seems like it tastes like beer up my alley. Also, because it's so clean. Like there's not all this like heavy yeast thing or anything. It's just like clean, bitter, really refreshing beer. I love beers like this. Like I still dig haze once in a while, but I'm all for drinking West Coasters these days. This is great. This is really, really nice. But if I had to compare this to some of these crazy, awesome brewers of the West Coast right now, like Slice and North Park, it's close, but it's not exactly there. I think it lacks a bit in aromatics and punchy flavor profile. It might have had that for, a few months back. I'm not sure. Let's also try and see if it gets more punchy when we pour this in. Does it get more hazy? No. It's actually quite clear. And it's probably dry hop quite highly. I would just love a bit more punch. Like the beers that I've loved the most from Slice and North Park has been like this somewhat, but just more punch and more bright and tropical and modern and hop characteristics. It's really good. But it's hard. You need to find, it's as with everything in beer, it's not just like you need to fine tune and work on things, and just that's how it is. And then all of a sudden you strike gold, and then you can build on that. But it takes practice and trial and error and research and everything. Brewing ain't easy. But this is a really nice modern West Coast type beer. Modern meets old school. Awesome old school flavors. Also awesome modern flavors. I'd love to try more Elusive Brewing. I hope we'll see some more show up here. Because I think this is the first. It's just in the shape of this collab. But maybe this will help if this sells quickly. I hope so. Usually it's the haze that goes first, and then the West Coasters still. Even though West Coast, I'm really hoping it will have as much of a comeback as it seems like it's having right now on the West Coast, because so many people are doing amazing West Coast beers. But yeah, 92 is really damn good. It's awesome West Coast beer. It's bitter, it's dry, it's saturated, it's punchy. I think it could have a bit more punch and saturation, but that's the only really beef. Only real beef. There's no it's not cloying. It's just like dry, bitter, really refreshing beer, and it's awesome. And I could crush a few of these. I dig it. So if you guys had Verdant and Elusive Brewing's Trust the Diagram West Coast IPA, let me know what you thought of it. As always, remember to comment, subscribe, check out the Facebook fan page and Twitter and Instagram. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Ring the bell for future notifications about videos. And I'm almost like cheers in some beer that certainly isn't dead. And see you guys in another beer review.